Once again, it's on.
Okay.
We are RegalRadio.com, WARR Media. We are we are more we doing it more what you need out here. We are not neutral like Switzerland. We're more small and powerful like Germany. We're a small empire, but we last throughout the years. And two men right here with me, man, is two reasons why why you even have a We Are Real Radio and a WARR Media, and my people Sean and Joe, better known as and Pharoah and Champ,
Yep.
two of the original hosts of this show, this Varsity show, and in bringing it back, it was only right that we got these guys on the show. Sean was on the first special that we did with the Minds a few weeks ago. But just bringing it back in the rotation with our broadcasting here. I'm definitely glad to have Joe back on as well. Joe's done a lot of stuff throughout the years, writing for us online, writing for the Red Eye back when that was a thing. You know, and definitely a great, and great, commentary guy, for sports in general, but especially with football. Joe used to play college football himself, and we're gonna go into quite a bit of that on the second half of the show. But first off, man, let's just catch up with you, man. We were talking just before we came on. It's been a while since you've been on anything with us. Just so to let people in on what's been going on with you, man, and how things have been.
Um, things have been kind of touch and go. As it has been with everybody. Lately, I had a career change. I'm a teacher for Chicago Public Schools. I've been dealing with a lot of remote learning as well as dealing with it as with my own two children. So that's been occupying my time. I still keep up with what everyone is doing. And everybody with Regal Radio has been doing a great job. You give a shout out to Josh Hicks. I like to read his stuff. He's fearless. I've seen his interviews on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter, uh, and so that's pretty much been it. Just keeping up with what Regal Radio's doing, keeping up with sports, and then working as an educator. Some of the things that's been occupying my time. Um, that's pretty much it. And trying to stay out the way, trying to stay safe. 6 feet.
No doubt, I'm with you, man. Because I'm scared every time I get a headache now, man. I don't try to have no type of mess wrong with me, man, because I get scared. But
Mhm.
you've been in education for a while, man. What's some of your thoughts on how things have, some of these plans and these things that people are talking about with coming back to school? It seems like
Um,
it's risky, man.
it was very risky. I would say that I'm glad that CPS did the right thing and deciding to go with full remote learning in the fall, as you've seen, in the South, neighboring states like Indiana, um, they went back to in-person schooling, and they already got a bunch of people in quarantine and closing schools already. And so I think it's the safe thing, the safe and practical thing to do is to start with remote learning. I know that it comes with challenges. I can attest to those challenges. It's very difficult, especially when you're dealing with young children, to get them to focus and grasp the concepts that you're trying to teach over a digital platform. But the main thing is keeping people safe. Um, I happen to work with very young children. I teach kindergarten, and you know, getting them to understand social distancing and the importance of that it would be difficult, and even know that you can um, drill it and practice it. Young children are impulsive, and a lot of times they don't understand why things are happening the way they are. So it's best, to keep everybody safe, And as far as with the grown-ups as well, you know,
Right.
I
Can't keep grown folks away from each other. You talking about little
exactly.
4 or
And
5
while
years.
right, and while I have faith in all my colleagues, they're all smart and educated people, obviously, but you don't know what they do when they go home. So, I think it was the safe thing, to just start with remote learning in the fall, and that's pretty much it. It stinks, for sports and everything. I've been, a senior in high school, and looking for a shot to get a scholarship and things like that. Those things are important. Um, so it looks like ISHA is going to do the right thing, and having football in the spring instead, which is the right thing to do. Um, so at least those kids will still get a chance to play, um, and get those opportunities that they deserve to get.
Yeah. Sean, let's go to you, man. How things been out there in Cleveland?
In
Yeah,
land,
in the land.
pretty decent. Um, Man, one of the things that I didn't really realize until I got here was like how dope the parks scene is, and I mean I work in that capacity, building and advocating for park development here, um, in Cleveland, but just coming here and really getting exposed is kind of ingrained in the culture. I mean, you can't really go a neighborhood and not see a park. Uh, it's an active scene. People are into the biking and into the getting their run in, and COVID is probably amplified that a little bit. So my outlook on it may be skewed because this is really the first spring summer cycle living here and seeing it. But man, just seeing how people have kind of responded to that and really incorporated that into their day. Like you can go anywhere on any side of town, east side, west side, affluent neighborhoods, the hood, it's all the same. You see people out, people active. So that was refreshing and pretty dope to see. By and large, I'm not really tapped into what's going on the school side, but I know as we transition into the fall, things are changing weather-wise here quick. You know what I'm saying? Like the leaves are starting to come down, and I'm like, man, I'm right on the lake. We're gonna get that first wave.
Hmm.
I really have a feeling that we're gonna probably get a rough winter, fellas. Midwest. I think we're gonna get that like that '90s, early '90s, slammed coming off the lake effect. You dig? So,
Yeah,
flu season,
Sean is also
cold flu
Sean
season
is
is going to
also
be big, man. It's going to be important for people to be diligent and really on the social distancing front now, because as we head into colder weather, cold and flu season, man, it's gonna. I have a bad feeling. I don't want to speak it into existence, but just seeing the way that the research is played out up to this point, it's not looking good.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we like you say that we're gonna go back into the cold and flu season. We've been dealing with all this stuff when the weather's good, and some people foolishly thought that just because it was gonna be warm, that we wouldn't have to deal with a virus, but that's
Right.
painfully proven to be wrong. So the numbers are still going up. They're talking now like Chicago may be a hot zone once again, and it's tough to deal with, man. We gotta guard ourselves, man, and hope that somewhere these scientists are getting something together for us to some sort of vaccine together in the next year or so that we could help get us from under this person. Because like I said, leave it up to us, leave it up to the people in general, and we got a lot more problems on our hands because people aren't staying away from each other. We still got people who act like they don't want to wear masks, and we got leadership, worst of all, that doesn't have any plans in order for us. So and that goes a lot into what we're going to talk about with college football in a minute. But fellas, let's talk about some of the other stuff that's going on the sports scene. I got the Hawks on my screen right now. They managed to force an overtime in this game too. I don't know. You guys have any thoughts on that? The Hawks been an unlikely playoff team trying to get some of that old feeling back, and yeah, it's kind of exciting that they're back in the postseason again. You guys got any thoughts on that?
Okay, I've been off the radar for the Blackhawks for a little bit. I saw that they were able to advance, and I said, you know what, I may check this series out. Knowing that Las Vegas, they riding high off of winning a Stanley Cup here recently. So
they made the Stanley Cup. Did they win it? Oh, I'm getting into deep waters. Did they win that series?
I thought they won it. I may be mistaken, but knowing that that's kind of a measuring stick, to see where the Blackhawks are. Obviously, there's been some roster change since we, had experienced the front end of that championship window back in like 2010, 2011. So, they've kind of overhauled the roster a couple times, and I don't know as many of the names and faces, but what better time? Maybe we can catch a like you said, catch the buzz, bring that old fella back.
Yeah. Yeah, Golden Knights were Western Conference champions in 2018. They lost to Washington for the Capitals. Okay. The Capitals won the cup there.
With the Blackhawks, I think it's good for the team. They still have some championship players on that team that give a lot of experience for those young players. And I haven't been paying attention that much, like Sean hasn't been, but I do know. I kind of keep my ear. I listen to all the sports radio and things like that. They got a fairly young team, and so this experience, is good for them, especially when you still have a Duncan Keith, Jonathan Taves, and
Kane and Crawford.
On the team. Yeah, Kane and Crawford on the team, and I think this is having those veterans on the team in the long, with the experience that those young players are getting now. This is a good, a good lesson in character building, and this is where you build that metal and you get calloused, for those long runs, those deep runs in the playoffs. And I'm not sure if they didn't have a bubble, the Blackhawks would be in this position, because they were kind of struggling, towards in March and stuff, when everything started to shut down. They were kind of scuffling a little bit, and this is kind of gave them an opportunity to to rejuvenate and tweak some things and find some things that work for them. And so being able to have this experience in the playoffs against the Knights, I think they're a little bit outclassed by the Knights. I saw yesterday they got it handed to them, and hopefully they're playing better today. But this experience is going to be valuable for those young players, and especially the young ones, and building for the future. And this is Jeremy Collington. He's also a fairly young coach who hasn't had these experiences as well coaching. So this is good for him to to see what the intensity is like, and learn how to press those players' buttons in these intense situations, and getting the best out of his guys when it really counts. So this is a good learning experience for them.
Yeah, and definitely agree with you on that, Joe. It's a lot of some of the younger guys have really been able to contribute too, and it's really helped. And especially that series with Edmonton, they got a good jump on them, and a large part because of some of the younger guys putting points in the goal and everything. And the Hawks, they stand a chance to really get their rebuilding process back on track with this. And it was, like you said, it was unexpected. It was something that wasn't going to come from them if the season had played out in the rightful manner, without the shutdown and everything. So, they're taking advantage of something here, and definitely good to see. And you talk about today. I mentioned, they just went into overtime 3-3 with Vegas. That's going on now. They fell back 2-0 in the first period. they started in the afternoon. These weird schedules that
Right.
these games are having now. But yeah, the Hawks are right now in intermission, heading into overtime 3-3. And
Mhm.
look at some of the other live scores out there. The Cubs are up 2-0 playing Milwaukee. And Jim, before we get into baseball, like I said, we haven't talked to you in a while, Joe. Has it? You mentioned like not really being into the hockey stuff yet, and I was just wondering, like in general, has it been difficult for you to get back into sports as the way that has come in this last month or so?
Well, I am, of the mindset that none of this stuff should be taking place. uh, and so while I've been watching a lot of the White Sox, I've been watching the NBA bubble. While I appreciate being able to watch sports and being entertained by it, I think that there's a lot more pressing stuff that we should be paying attention to, other than sports. I get that. The owners need to make money, and fans want to be entertained, and there's a lot of money out there left on the table if they don't play. So I understand all those things.
Players got to make money too.
The players got to make money too. So while I don't think they should be playing, I'm happy to watch.
Right? Because what else are we gonna do, right, Sean?
Right.
I mean, what else are we gonna do?
Right.
Yeah, binge watch your favorite TV. Like I'm on like the third. I think this is my third or fourth rewatch of The Wire. I see, right? I mean, that's all we got. Like classic shows. So live sports, I mean, it's good that we have that as an outlet. I think I gotta applaud the NBA. I think that heading into the bubble and how they constructed the narrative around containing the virus and having the players there in Orlando up front. The narrative was almost negative. You're going to bring all those guys down there, and but so far they've shown and proven that they've had the best foresight and proactive thought around protecting the players, protecting the people that they come in contact with. Now that's going to be subject to be tested. Now that they've expanded it to invite families and as they call close personal friends.
Yeah, right.
We'll see what happens with especially some of the single players. How if they're able to maintain that level of containment. But so far so good, and props to the NBA.
To follow up on what I said, I was very skeptical that the NBA would be able to pull this off. Just knowing how, hearing the stories of how NBA players act when they're, not playing basketball. You see the whole snafu that they had with Lou Williams before he came to the bubble and things like that. And I actually expected there to be a lot more of that. So, like, you got to commend the guys, for taking a professional approach and making sure they're doing what it takes to see the thing through and get to the end. Baseball is struggling with that right now. And they've come under a lot of criticism. Their players have come out a lot of criticism for not doing the basic things that they need to do to make sure they stay safe and to make sure they can play games. So you see, what the NBA is doing. I like Sean said, we got to applaud them and commend them for being professional, and also the NHL as well. I think, I think the fact that they're mostly indoor sports and you can kind of have bubbles like that and to get those things out. This is something that MLB decided not to do, but the bubble's working for both leagues right now.
Yeah, it's proven well. The WNBA as well. They haven't had any positive tests down there in their bubble. And the NBA, like you say, really given they have the biggest scope of any league going right now in the bubble. They really should be commended. You talk about 300 some tests a week, and they've gone like 3 weeks now without any tests. and then looks like they're going to be able to play into their playoff with no problem. And they're setting up the playing games on Saturday, and it looks like it's some interesting things that are coming about. Like the Suns, they won today, and it looks like they're going to go 9-0 in the seeding games, but they're not even going to be able to play in the playing game. They've been like the best, the hottest team in the league. And, but they're not going to play in the seeding game because it looks like it's going to be Memphis and Portland. Portland also been hot. Dame Lillard, Carmelo, they've been getting a lot of headlines.
Game time.
I kind of want to see the Suns, man. The way the Suns been playing. They even got Campaign out there looking like an all-star, which has to hurt everybody who saw him play here in Chicago. Sean, I saw you added to the conversation about that on Twitter, man. What's up with this, man? Every time the guy come on the Bulls, they look like a bum, they act like a bum, and as soon as they get away from the Bulls, it's like they done got off the plantation, man. Like they for freedom.
The chips were stacked against Campaign, man. Lottery level talent, and you can't put that selection on the Bulls. There are a lot of teams who valued him that high, but I think coming to Chicago, the chips, at least from a Bulls fan perspective, were against Campaign just because of how lopsided the deal was, right? Like we knew what we were giving up. A true professional in Taj Gibson, they had already rolled the dice and gotten rid of a lot of draft equity with Doug McDermott to acquire him, and then you turn around and flip him for Campaign. It's like, and then he was coming in off of injury, so. I don't think the Bulls saw the best of him physically, what he could do, but it wasn't a good fit from the jump. And so, he's gotten his opportunity in Phoenix in the bubble. And, sometimes them guys, man, they manage to stick around. Next thing you know, they have a 10-year career. He might just be one of them dudes.
Yeah, it looks like it may be the case. It's, hopefully it is. I don't root against him, But
we saw the absolute worst of Campaign, and so
but we saw the absolute worst of Campaign.
So my view is a little bit jaded. I'm happy the young man is starting to figure it out, but some stuff I just can't forgive.
I hear you, Joe, but at this, like you say, who did he have to really make him into anything here? Like the coach wasn't worth anything. The front office, they just, if you look back on the whole era after the dynasty, there have been player after player who's come into this city, and they had promise. These players that the Bulls had dead set targets on, and they wanted to do something with them, but they didn't make anything of them while they were here for some reason. Then they go on and have great careers. You could go down the list. Artest, Crawford, Brad Miller, Tyson Chandler. They traded for Tyson Chandler, set him up with Curry. They did a little bit, but Chandler's gone on to be a multiple-time champion since then. I mean, this is like you keep going on and on. Up to recent years, Spencer Dinwiddie was a guy that had, They got rid of Melo for whatever reason. They had him for a day here in January. After that back like they wanted him for 5 years. they finally had it. It was like, you washed, just like everybody. They went with the whole narrative that the league had that Melo's washed. Now he's back here like he's getting Lala's. He's in the bubble, but he's playing like he's getting Lala's Cheerios every day now, man. He's playing like a new man.
Hey, look, I called it some years back too. I think in one of the pieces I wrote, I mentioned that Lala could get her acting thing busy in Chicago, and lo and behold, she's on the shot. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. If we're gonna get into the Bulls, I mean, like, oh man, I wasn't prepared for that, but
I mean, to Cal's point, when he mentions, all the players that the Bulls have had that have gone on, to on to bigger and better things. Most notably lately, Spencer Dinwiddie, and what he's been able to do. That really just shows you that the front office has been on some BS, and they got too many chances, you know, over and over again to screw things up. I think that they were able to acquire some nice pieces, during their time, but for some reason, I think they fall in love with the wrong players, and then let the right and let the right ones go. uh,
Yeah.
like somebody like a Spencer Dinwiddie, um, and so I think that you know we seem to have some hope, with AK and Eversley and with the new guys and to see what they're going to do. They definitely got the respect around the league and got some good, pedigree as far as evaluating talent and, and, and being
Well,
able.
they have more respect around the league than they do in the building right now. Though they're being handcuffed with Broiler. Like, I mean, I don't. What's up with that?
You know, um, I really have no ideas to maybe just maybe the guy that they're looking for is in the bubble right now, you know, and so you
Yeah,
know
that could be true.
and there's no reason to go ahead and rush and start speculation, when you can move in silence and what I'm saying, and and I guess misdirection, so to speak, with that whole thing. I think that Reinsdorf and those with the White Sox with Kenny and Rick Hahn, those guys like to move in silence and they don't like a whole lot of speculation about the things that they're doing. Uh, and lately, it's been beneficial to the White Sox to be able to make those moves without flying under the radar. With the moves that they've been able to do and being able to acquire young talent and fleece the Cubs and Boston. What I'm saying, and build up their stockpile of young talent. And I can kind of see a similar situation with the Bulls, as far as wanting to keep things close to the best, and so other teams can't get the jump on them. And so I'm hopeful that Boylan is not going to be the the coach coming up next season, but you know it is what it is. I do think that there's a bigger play in the end, so I'm not going to rush. I know a lot of people get upset that he's still the coach, and all they want to do is talk about who the next guy is going to be and things like that. But you know, it's better to be pragmatic and make sure you get the right guy, and you want to be able to talk to people. When they can focus on you and your team and your roster to get the best interviews that you want to get.
Sure, D. That's a good answer, Chad. I agree with that
That's
100%.
yeah. That's well said, Joe. I agree with you. I gotta say, if Broylan coaches one more game officially for the Bulls, I'm gonna blow something up. It may just be like a little mailbox or something, but I'm gonna blow something up. I gotta get out my frustrations somehow, man. If he coaches one more official game for the Bulls, I'm blowing something up. But like you say though, with AK, when you look at what he did in Denver, he helped build that roster that they got now, and it's one of the deepest and most athletic rosters. They could throw five guys at you at any time who were like 6'8" to 6'11", who can all dribble and shoot, and they just got a cold roster over there in Denver. We'll see how they do in the playoffs, but if that's the main example that we could look at as Bulls fans and be like, if he's allowed to do his thing, the Bulls could have something special built for them in the near future. So yeah, we'll definitely keep up with the Bulls as we go along. But we're gonna bring in our guy Mike Chen, special guest, first time on the Varsity Show and on Regal Radio, former producer for 670 The Score. He's writing now and doing a lot of blogging on college football, Notre Dame, and the like, and well as the Big 10 Minutes podcast. Is that correct, Mike? You
Big Ten
put
Morning
that out?
Minute. There you go. Close
Big
enough.
Ten Morning Minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, so I want to get into, but we haven't done much talk about college football, and we got a former college player in Joe here, and I want to get into that, man. There's been a lot. That's been basically the main storyline of all the sports covered on a national level this week, because so many people are invested in college football, and you got two of the major leagues, the major conferences, I say, Big Ten and Pac-10, who said we're not doing anything in the fall. You have the other three are essentially saying that they're up to play in the fall: SEC, Big 12, and ACC. And there's people are talking about there's an off chance that individual teams in the Big Ten, like Nebraska and Ohio State, may try to play games on their own. They may try to fashion a schedule of their own at the last minute. So, Mike, just try to take us into all this, man. From your point of view, what's it been? What are your thoughts on what's been going on, and are these conferences who's taking the most prudent steps going towards this fall? Are there going to be teams that are going to rebel in the Big Ten? What type of madness are we likely to see going forward?
Well, in the Big Ten, nobody's leaving, and that came out earlier this afternoon. Nebraska had thought about it; they kicked the tires about it. There's a lot of money riding on it for them, and I just can't see them doing it. They ultimately ended up not doing it. Ryan Day yesterday talked about potentially looking at other options he's Ohio State's head coach. And then Gene Smith, their athletic director, shot that down later in the afternoon when he was interviewed by ESPN. So there's no movement there. To be honest with you, it's a difficult situation because you're looking at two of the Power 5 conferences who have opted to not play here in the fall. And obviously, the Big Ten and the Pac-12. The Big Ten, Kevin Warren, I don't think he did the best job with his announcement. And the reason being is he was very vague as to why exactly the conference decided to not play in the fall. He said there was just a lot of uncertainty, whereas Larry Scott, the commissioner of the Pac-12, actually came out and said there's medical reasons for this. And he's got 4 schools that are in California, and California is having a really difficult time controlling the coronavirus right now. And he looked at medical reasons, and he very much said, look, it is all medical right now. We aren't equipped to handle what we need to do in order to safely protect the players from getting this virus. And mitochondritis, which is a big part of this, because that is the heart disease that everyone's concerned with right now that has to do with the coronavirus. And that is a huge concern. Look at Indiana, their offensive tackle. He's a true freshman. His name's Brady Feeney. His mother came out on Facebook a couple of days ago and said the young man, when Indiana shut down, the young man was one of the guys that got it. And he's not fighting right now for his football life. He is literally fighting for his own life, his regular life, not football. And so I think that played a huge part in it. And to be honest with you, if Kevin Warren came out and said, look, I'm giving you an example. Brady Feeney had a ton of issues here. We don't feel comfortable sending the rest of our players out there. I would have bought that. But he was very vague. And so I think of those two conferences, if you're going to pick a winner as to who did it better, it's the Pac-12. But I think it's a sad day for college football because you're also looking at the fact that the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 are looking towards playing football, and the rest of them aren't. And Dabo Swinney said yesterday, a championship is a championship, regardless of who's playing.
Sure.
And, they have to play who's ever in front of them. And unfortunately for the Big Ten and the Pac-12, it's not going to be any of those teams.
Yeah, not surprised that Dabo's taking that sort of stand.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Dabo at all. And, it's been numerous times he's revealed his true character, his true intentions. And it's really not geared towards the benefit of players, but to the benefit of the coaches. And I think that's one of the most disappointing things that's coming out about the situation as to how little the health and safety of the players is coming to mind. I read a comment about Dabo's take on the Players Coalition or the Players Association that they're trying to form, and he said he's all fine with a Players Coalition as long as it's not a union.
Right.
That's very telling. Is where his mindset is in. Bottom line is that the football generates a lot of money for those schools. Those football pays for pretty much everyone's scholarship on campus, whether it's academic or or the other sports like rowing. uh, so
Yeah. Country club sports.
right.
The non-revenue sports, right? Exactly.
Exactly. And so I think that that's the main reason that they want to play. I think that when you look at football, you got a lot of players that play overweight. That's a lot of strain on the heart. A lot of cardiovascular issues that come with being 18, 19, 20 years old and carrying a few extra 50 to 70 pounds of extra weight. And those concerns should be taken in into consideration, like the young man you mentioned from Indiana. So a true freshman lineman, he probably shouldn't be that heavy, but he's that heavy because he's playing football.
Yeah.
So I'm just disappointed, that they're considering the play, given how much those athletes give and represent for their schools. And I don't think that the coaches, especially in the SEC and ACC and Dabo, I don't think that they don't really care, about about the players. Like Dabo said, a championship is a championship. While he's making $8 million a year, those kids, can't even go get a part-time job. So it's really unfair.
Yeah, he gets
100%.
the benefit of approaching this like a professional because
Right.
because he is getting paid an exorbitant amount, whereas these players are, like I said, they're just unskilled labor in the minds of these. It seems like not only the coaches, but a lot of the media and a lot of these fans who just want to see their alma mater play on Saturdays, and it's very reckless and uncaring thinking, I think, on a lot of the fans' behalf and the media's behalf, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be honest with you guys, what you're looking at right now is probably the worst case scenario for college football. Because in 2021, NIL happens. That's name, image, likeness. Then players are able to make money off of themselves. And so right now, they're put in a tough position. I mean, think about 5 years ago when Northwestern's quarterback Kane Coulter decided to talk about forming a union. He was pretty much blackballed from football after that, which is really disappointing because he was fighting for players' rights, which is exactly what should be going on. You guys are completely on point with the fact that it's free labor. It's absolutely ridiculous. And when you look at, for an example, Dabo Swinney, millions and millions of dollars every year is going to his pocket to coach college football. How much money are the players getting? Not a penny. They have to wait 3 years until they can get drafted in the NFL. And even then, it's not a certainty that they'll stick around and make a long-term living. And they're giving up some of their livelihood. I mean, you look at all the CTE cases that are going on right now. All of the guys, the linemen who they can't walk anymore because their knees are so shot from playing football. The fact that they weren't allowing them to at least try to form a union is absolutely ridiculous. But at the current moment, that is what it is. I think that after 2021, when players are allowed to make money on themselves, I think a lot of this changes. I don't think that they really have a situation where you can't say they're going to unionize, because now if they're making their own money, they can unionize. So right now it's just it's a terrible situation for college football. And until next year, there's really no solution, to be honest with you.
Mike, how much of a difference, you mentioned that the way that the Pac-12 is publicly dealt with this situation is, it's been a little bit preferable the way that the Big Ten has, even though they've done the same thing, made the same decision overall. There's a way that they've gone about it that's been better. How much of that do you think can be attributed to the fact that there is sort of it's not a union yet, but there's been a concentrated movement by the players in the Pac-12 to represent themselves against as opposed to the conference. Whereas though the Big Ten, there was some statement made by the players, but it didn't really push the conference too hard. Like the Pac-12 players have been more demanding in regards to wanting to see some standards of health, and they've even made mention of being paid and stuff. And I just want to get your thoughts on that, and what do you think a type of difference that may have made?
Well, to be honest with you, both conferences did that. The Big Ten also did that. The Big Ten was the second conference to do it, and that's why they didn't get as much publicity as you might have thought they would. The Pac-12 came out early and did it, right? And they wrote on. They had an open letter out to their administrators that said, "Hey, look, these are demands, pretty much." And I don't think it's a coincidence that those two conferences were the two conferences that opted not to play college football. I think it is 100% on point because these players wanted more than what the universities are willing to give them. They wanted health care past their playing careers. 6 years is what the Pac-12 asked for. And I think that is 100% valid because at the current moment, like we just talked about, they're not making money. They're amateur athletes. The injuries that they sustain now could last a very long time. Say a guy tears his ACL, MCL, PCL. So that's the unholy triad. He's tearing every ligament in his knee. He might have issues running, walking in 10, 20, 30 years. So why wouldn't these schools that make millions and millions of dollars while they're athletes be able to pay some medical bills after they're done participating for them? It makes all the sense in the world to me to do that. But these universities are looking at the bottom line, and it's money. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate right now because that is the way that they're looking at things. I wish that it wasn't the case, but at the current moment, it's about money. And these players are finally wising up, and I love it. The power of the players that they have now compared to just 2 to 3 years ago is immense. Look at the way that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields of Ohio State, Trevor Lawrence, Clemson's quarterback, the waves that they made on Sunday when they came out and they said their demands. Now, it wasn't towards a conference, and I think that's why the ACC kind of brushed it off. But the demands that they asked for are legit demands. They should be getting these. They should have scholarship assurances for any player who wants to opt out of the 2020 season. That 100% should be in line. You look at some of the Big Ten schools, Wisconsin already said for their spring season that they just had, the one that had everyone canceled, they're not honoring scholarships. I mean, think about that. A lot of those players, that is college for them in a nutshell. They will never play some sort of professional sport at all, and they won't get a chance to play with their teammates ever again. And to take that away is just absolutely ridiculous when you're talking about a global pandemic. So for them to ask for that, it makes complete sense. I think that, when you go back to it and look, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, they've been married for a long time. The Rose Bowl is all about what you're talking about. That's the marriage. That is what's brought them together. And it didn't really surprise me that both of them were kind of on par with everything. And the fact that they both made the decision. I mean, they were the first two conferences as well to go to conference-only 2020 seasons, and obviously they canceled first as well. So they're married. Everything that they do is kind of hand in hand. And I think that, to be honest with you, they're probably talking to the very similar type of doctors as well, because the ACC, SEC, and Big 12, all of their doctors have given them the green light, obviously, to play football, whereas the the Pac-12 and the Big 10 have not.
Right. Sean, you want to bring something into this, man?
Yeah, Mike, you had mentioned a couple comments ago that just the prevalence of CTE and post-injury for players. Like, I'm curious to know your perspective on, especially coming out of COVID. Like, what are the insurance ramifications going to look like for college sports, specifically college football?
Well, there's really nothing that the universities at the current moment are tied to. When you look and see their eligibility's over, it's like they wash their hands clean. And it's unfortunate because, like I just said, these athletes put their livelihood on the line for these colleges. And a good example is look at Michigan tight end Jake Butt a couple of years ago, tore his ACL in their bowl game, lost millions of dollars because he was a projected first-round pick, ultimately ended up going to the third and fourth round, and hasn't really even hit the NFL field because he can't get there because of the injury he sustained in their bowl game. So to me personally, I would love to see the NCAA completely change what they're doing and say, you know what, if you're going to put it on the line for us, we're going to put it on the line for you. We're going to give you medical care for the rest of your life. And you can have some, if you can have some qualifiers to this, say, if you go on in the NFL and make X amount of money, say it's career earnings over $50 million, you probably don't need your school's help for medical stuff, right? Right. But say that you make league minimum for 5 years and that's your career. But then in 25 years, because of an injury you sustained in college, you have to walk with a cane or you have issues. College should pay for that. That's on them. That's not on the NFL. That shouldn't be on the player as well because they're technically employed by the NCAA when they're actually not. I mean, you're paid through a scholarship as opposed to being paid money, which is still a lot. But if it was me, if I was Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, I'm saying, look, I'm looking at potentially giving long-term insurance to these players because they're putting everything on the line for us. Not necessarily, I mean, it's for them too, but it's for us right now. And it just makes sense to me. It's absolutely ridiculous the way that the NCAA treats their collegiate athletes.
I want to get at a couple big picture things with NCAA before we wrap up. But I want to get into some Notre Dame specific stuff right now. You contribute to a Irish Wire with a USA Today, right? And let's talk about ND. They're of course they're expecting to play, and they're expecting to play pretty much as a full-fledged member of the ACC this year, as opposed to in recent years where they've had, they've been sort of half and half. They play like half of their schedule ACC games, but they haven't been. They this year they're not only playing ACC games, an entire ACC schedule. They're also eligible to be in the ACC championship game. So, what do you think about that for ND? Was that an easy decision for them, and what do you think is going to do? What type of impact is going to have on this season for them?
I think for them for this year, it made all the sense in the world to join a conference because when you look at the college football landscape, everyone was canceling and they were canceling out of conference games and pretty much everything Notre Dame plays. Like you said, they're kind of tied with the ACC, but they're not really. Yeah. They're allowed to play the majority of ACC teams because of the contract that they have with them with other sports. I mean, every other sport aside from hockey, Notre Dame is in the ACC. Basketball, baseball, all the other major sports, they're in it. But for this year, it made all the sense in the world. Now, going forward, because Notre Dame has a big money contract with NBC to pay to watch their games on TV, an exclusive contract. I mean, there is no other school in the country. You could argue that the Longhorn Network with Texas, but that really hasn't blown up. No. You think NBC, you think Notre Dame college football, right? On a Saturday afternoon. That's what you're going to see on NBC. And for them to give up that kind of money is silly. It will probably going forward give them a conversation when their contract is over with NBC. But until that happens, Notre Dame's going to continue to stay their independence. They don't want to split money with any other member of a conference, the ACC. I mean, the way that, so say you go to a bowl game, right? And the school brings in $10 million. you don't get $10 million. You're splitting that money into a pool for the whole conference. It doesn't just go to you. Right now, everything just goes to Notre Dame. So it makes no sense for them to not continue their relationship with NBC. And the ACC, it makes sense with other sports, because think about if they had independence in basketball, that just wouldn't work. There's no way that would work. But for football at the current moment, it works. And in all reality, here's the crazy part about college football. There is no governing body with college football as there is for the rest of sports in the NCAA. Mark Emmert has no say in what's going on. That's why you see all over Twitter, people are like, well, if there's this college football czar, everything would be fine. Well, there's a reason why. There is no person that can control what's going on. Each conference is their own entity, which is absolutely nuts to me at this point in time, because you'd figure they would at least have someone overseeing it, because if they did, I don't think we'd be in this mess right now. Everyone would be all across the board. It would be everything the same. Whereas right now, you've got 60% of the conferences set to play, 40% not. But Notre Dame, but I kind of got off topic there. But back to the Notre Dame stuff, it makes no sense for them going forward to continue the relationship with the ACC football-wise. I do think, like I said, that they will come back and at least have a conversation when it's all said and done with the contract with NBC. But at the current moment, it made sense for just this year. I think next year for 21, it goes right back to the way it was. Notre Dame sees their independence and can schedule whoever the hell they want to play.
And I see that happening too, Mike. But you when you say you went off the topic, but you was leading right back to where I wanted to go. And as a big picture thing, like look, say these three conferences, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC, they go ahead and play this year in the fall. They get through these games somehow, and they have they have a national championship game. Look, the last several years, the national championship game has essentially been the battle of the South anyway. It's been two Southeastern teams anyway. What if they get through this fall and they get through what for them would be a typical college football season? They crown a champion. What would be stopping them starting from next year to say, look, we don't need the NCAA. We don't need your regulations. We don't need your rules. Let's mob up us. We could bring in Ohio State and Notre Dame, maybe a couple of teams from the West Coast, and we have our own thing going. What's the possibility of that happening? If like I say, a lot would have to happen. A lot of dominoes have to fall. But what do you think the possibility of that's happening? When you all, like I say, we're starting from a point here where these conferences are moving unilaterally. They have the ability, we know now, to move unilaterally. How could it play out?
I think, honestly, in the future, you're going to see this Power 5 be absolved, and you're going to see 4 major conferences. All of the big schools will join up. You're still going to have, your FCS and your non-Power 5 schools, but when has a non-Power 5 school really made that much noise in order to actually get a championship? UCF a couple of years ago, they went undefeated, but they crowned themselves a champion. They're not real champions. It's not a real championship. It's a fake championship that plenty of other schools have. But big picture, when you're looking at years down the line, 100%, I could see the complete absolution, especially after this year, with Nebraska being angry, with Ohio State being angry about the fact that they're getting handcuffed here by the Big Ten, by the conference. Nebraska, they've jumped conferences already. I don't think it's out of question that they say, hey, you know what? We were in the Big 12. We were in the Big 10. Now we're just going to do whatever the hell we want. They want to go to whatever conference, they probably can. Nebraska is a big enough name, although on the national scene, they really haven't been significant since Scott Frost when they in the early 90s when they won back-to-back championships. But that doesn't matter. They're still a big brand, and it's all about the brand. And these big schools can do whatever the hell they want. And I think at some point in time, because, and I think that they're going to come back and look at this. A lot of these schools are going to say, hey, look, we don't feel like the conference leaders, the presidents, the commissioner, they did us right. We're going to move on. We're going to explore other opportunities. I mean, for Ohio State, do they really need the Big Ten? Not really. They don't. They are clearly the best team in that conference. Very similar to the situation with Clemson. Clemson doesn't need the ACC. They don't. What would make a lot more sense is that if they were maybe in a division together, I mean, how cool would it be to see Ohio State and Clemson play in a non-college football playoff game? That would be, as a college football fan, I'd love it. I mean, that'd be great. Yeah. Right, exactly. And going forward, you're probably going to see some semblance of, these super conferences is what they're going to call them. But at the current moment, you just don't know. But I could definitely see this year being a tipping point to some of these schools saying, hey, you know what? We should at least explore what's going on, because if they're going to hold us back from doing what we want to do, it doesn't make sense. And, I think that, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, they're going to lose recruits because of this. Ohio State's already lost a 5-star defensive end from Texas who decommitted the day of the Big Ten announcing that they weren't going to play fall football. I think he's just the first guy that's going to come in a ramification of all sorts of decommits for the Big Ten, because, look, they're putting themselves in a very difficult position. And going forward, Ohio State might say, hey, you know what? We don't need this anymore. We can move on. We can find somebody else, because what other conference wouldn't want that type of school? Now, if you're talking about like Rutgers needs the Big Ten, okay? Rutgers 100% needs the Big Ten. Penn State, for example. Penn State, they were independent at one point in time. They don't need the Big Ten, okay? They joined the conference so they can have an affiliation so they can go to a bowl game every year. They don't need the Big Ten. Right. Michigan, if they wanted to leave the Big Ten, they don't need the Big Ten. There are schools that definitely need it, but you know what? At the end of the day, if those Big Ten schools and the big ones that I just named want to leave, it's going to force everybody else to realign everything, and you're going to see different conferences, which, to be honest with you, to me, I like the tradition, but you can still keep those traditions. You can have those guys on your schedule, just be out of conference. So I think that ultimately you might see the conferences absolve, and you're seeing, 4 major conferences, and then you're going to have a very easy conversation for the college football playoff. The winner of those conferences gets an automatic bid, and there is no conjecture whether or not a team, like 2 SEC teams, should go every year, or this team should go and that team should go. You win your conference, you get a chance to win a national championship. And that's part of the issue as well right now, too. There's not enough spots in the college football playoff for people to be happy. 5 power conferences, 4 spots. People aren't happy. There's always going to be a conference that's angry about the fact that they're not in. And, you're looking at the SEC, they get favoritism a lot of the times. They've had 2 entrants into the college football playoff multiple years. So, I could see at some point in time the group of the major colleges saying, hey, you know what? We've had enough of this. Let's move on and let's create our own super conferences.
Sean, I want to go back to you right quick, because you're in Buckeye country. Has there been any type of swirl going about out there where there's been like sort of rooting for Ohio State to stand up against the Big Ten, or have they been like, oh, well, maybe they should just be cool or whatever? How's the perspective been like out there?
Yo, this is definitely a football state, and they take their football serious here. The Ohio State program is the crown jewel of that. Surprisingly enough, though, it's been pretty quiet in terms of like bucking the system and going rogue. So to answer short answer, I can't say that it's been a lot of action media wise and radio wise discussions around that. But I mean, when you're in a driver's seat like that, like you can afford to just sit back and let it play out. I mean, they've got a lot at stake, And to my point about insurance and just in the grand scheme of things, like you're talking about big corporations funding, $1 million, in some instances $1 billion programs. So, long-term ramifications like I would think that the Ohio states of the world have a lot at stake in terms of seeing how the whole thing plays out. Um, I don't know. If I was in that seat making that decision, I would not be so quick to put players on the field. I'll tell you that.
Oh, real quick, guys. I'm actually an Ohio State graduate, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys knew that. So I'm kind of in tune with what the hell's going on over there, too, because football is life out there as an Ohio State alumnus. And to be honest with you, Ryan Day, like I said earlier, he kicked the tires about potentially leaving. And Gene Smith, their athletic director, said, no, that's not the case. So at the current moment, the Buckeyes, they want to play. I mean, they have a national championship caliber team right now. They're the only team in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 that can actually say that they have a legit shot at a national title. But when you're looking at the fact that they're going to try and play spring ball, and you're looking at the potential of players in a 12-month period playing 20 games, that's absolutely ridiculous. If this whole thing was about protecting players, then they're not doing it right. They are definitely not having the right system out there for the players for their protection. So it's a little scary for me, but at the end of the day, you have to figure that the Big Ten is going to do what the Big Ten wants to do, and so is Ohio State. And, if the Big Ten says no, I mean, when Nebraska asked out as well, they were like, yeah, I don't know. They kicked the tires. Kevin Warren was asked twice. So he went on with Dave Revson of the Big Ten Network, and he spoke for about a half hour. And Revson actually asked him twice what he thought about Nebraska potentially leaving, and he kind of brushed it off. Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel ultimately got the answer from him, which was if they opt to play in a different conference this year, they're gone. So with that in mind, there's so much money at stake for these guys. There's just no way that they would, do that. And it's just silly right now for us to conjecture about it. But it makes sense when you're talking about Ohio State specifically, because they have legit shot at winning a championship, and that won't happen if they play in the spring.
That always raises the stakes when you have that chance at the national title. Go ahead, Joe. Let's wrap it up soon, though.
I had a quick question. When you talk about the Pac-12 and the Big Ten deciding not to play, how much did liability come into those decisions?
Well, I think a lot, especially for the Pac-12. With California, you have no idea what's going on with the virus. I mean, when we all look at these virus heat maps, it's all like the southern states, which absolutely boggles my mind why the SEC and the ACC want to play football, it's just there's a ton of liability on there. And what I thought that Scott did right was that he said, look, we weren't prepared for this. We don't have the money for it. We don't have the resources for it. We can't do this. We can't safely protect our players from this virus. The Big Ten, they missed the ball. They didn't say that. That's why I thought that Kevin Warren missed it. But when you're talking about Scott, what Larry Scott did, right on the ball. He said, look, we can't do it. We don't feel comfortable doing it because we don't have the resources. And that's exactly an answer that I was looking for out of Kevin Warren. And I would have bought anything. If he said, oh, yeah, Brady Feeney scared us. Done. Fine. Okay. But he just said that there were so many unknowns, and he kept going back to that. He said unknown, like what it seemed like every other word during his press conference. And to me that, it wasn't firm enough. I just wanted a firm answer. Just stand by it, be firm. And that's exactly what Scott did for the Pac-12, and that's not what Warren did for the Big Ten. So I think that the Pac-12, they were smart, and they realized, hey, look, we can't do this. We don't have the resources to do any of this, and let's just not even try to put our athletes into a position where they could contract the virus and continue to give it to everybody else. So that was smart on their part for saying, hey, at least we know we can't do this.
Right.
Yeah, and uncharted waters, y'all, and it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. What type of season, if any, that's gonna play out for major college football. But I love to talk about it more here, but I got to slide over, do our Running with WARR show, our NBA show. Mike, you a great man. We definitely gonna bring you back for more college football talk, no matter how the season plays out. Let the folk know how to get with you online and everything, where to follow you at.
Just on Twitter at Mike F. Chen. That's it. That's the only social media I got. No, no Instagram. And that's it. So yeah, find me on Twitter, Mike F. Chen.
And they could follow all your writing and stuff on there too in the Big Ten.
I pretty much I've got a link for the Fighting Irish Wire, all of the USA Today stuff in my bio on Twitter, and then on top of that, I tweet out the rest of it on a pretty regular basis, so you'll see the rest of it on there. So I just started being I'm a scout for Prep Red Zone Illinois right now, and very interestingly, I went to a football camp this past weekend, so that was something different to see everybody masked up and to playing football. But it was nice to get some semblance of normalcy back, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah, we should get to talk some about what's going on in Illinois too at the prep level. And some we do that also going forward as well, man. But love talking to you, man. You had a great time. Joe and Sean, man, you know what it is. Sean, you got the tag up, Craft Beer So Shy. That's where you follow him. Joe, let people know where to follow you at.
At Badman_Tanksley. That's at BADMAN_Tanksley. I'm on there. I'm talking about cigars and all kinds of stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, follow our guys. Like we said, they're two of the guys who helped build all this here. We are Regal Radio. Well, give them some respect, man, and we'll do more of these Varsity Show specials going forward, man. Every couple weeks or so, I think will bring us together. So keep watching for that. Keep watching for all our stuff here. You can see it on the bottom, anchor.fm/Regal-Radio. That's where you can hear all our podcasts. And that's it. We are RegalRadio.com. You get our writing and stuff, all that throughout the week. So keep showing us love. We'll show it right back, y'all. And that's it for now. I got to move over. I'm late for Running with WARR now. So just stay on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, stay on YouTube, and you'll get that from us coming up in a couple minutes. Fellas, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Anything, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.